The sun had barely touched the horizon when the kingdom of Eldrith stirred in uneasy silence. Towers of silver and gold reached toward the sky, their spires cutting through the pink haze of dawn. Dragons of every color glided above the city, their wings slicing the air with quiet authority. But within the grand hall of the royal palace, a shadow had fallen heavier than any night. The dragon lady lay on a carved stone dais, her scales dimmed to a dull gray, her breathing shallow and uneven. She had ruled Eldrith for decades, guiding her people through storms of war and peace alike. And now, for reasons no one fully understood, her life was slipping away. Her royal family, her sons, daughters, and advisors, hovered around, their eyes wide with worry and disbelief. Not a single one dared to speak, for the air itself seemed too heavy with fear. Outside the hall, the usual hum of the kingdom's life continued. Merchants shouted prices, young dragons played in the courtyards, and the sky shimmered with golden light. Yet, for those who entered the palace, the world felt hollow. Time slowed, and every heartbeat echoed like a drum. At that very moment, a human, unwanted and unfamiliar, crept into the palace. His hands were smudged with grease, and his clothes carried the faint scent of oil and metal. No dragon in the kingdom had ever trusted humans fully. Most feared them, some laughed at them, and a few simply ignored their existence. But this human, named Kale, had come seeking only work, repairing ancient machinery that powered parts of the palace. Kale had never imagined that today, fate would guide his hands toward something far beyond simple repairs. The dragon guards at the doorway had allowed him through with cautious eyes. His focus was on a small, broken gear near the dais. He bent down, wiping sweat from his brow, unaware that the world around him was holding its breath. As he adjusted the gear, his hand brushed against the dragon lady's arm. The touch was accidental, a simple mistake from a man too focused on metal and screws. But in that instant, a faint glow spread beneath her scales, like sunlight breaking through clouds after a storm. The air in the hall vibrated with energy. The royal family froze. Whispers erupted, sharp and hurried, as if words themselves feared to disturb the miracle unfolding. Her eyes, one daughter whispered. She is moving. The dragon lady's eyelids fluttered. A soft, almost musical sound escaped her throat, a sound that no human or dragon had heard before. Her breathing grew steady. The dull gray of her scales brightened, shimmering with colors that mirrored the dawn outside. The energy around her pulsed gently, as if the room itself had taken a deep, relieved breath. Kale stepped back, startled. His hands shook, and he could barely comprehend what had just happened. He had touched her, yes, but nothing in his life had prepared him for this. How could a simple mechanic, a human stranger, awaken life in a creature of such power and majesty? The royal family crowded closer, their faces etched with a mixture of awe and fear. Some dropped to their knees, unable to believe their eyes. Others looked at Kale with suspicion, wondering if this miracle was a gift or a curse. Whispers of prophecy and old legends floated through the hall. Could it be that humans were more than they seemed? That the dragon lady had chosen this outsider for a reason no one yet understood? The dragon lady opened her eyes fully now. They were like twin suns, radiating warmth and authority. She turned her gaze toward Kale. For a moment, the room was silent again. Then, in a voice both soft and commanding, she spoke. You saved me." Kale shook his head, words failing him. He was just a man, a mechanic. How could he possibly save a being who had ruled kingdoms and witnessed centuries of life? Yet, even as doubt filled him, he felt a strange confidence growing. Something within him hummed with power he could not name, something that the legends of dragons had never spoken aloud. The royal family exchanged glances, their fear slowly turning into cautious hope. The dragon lady's life had been hanging by a thread, yet now, with a simple touch, she was alive again. What did this mean for Eldrith? And what would the human's presence bring into their world? Outside the hall, the wind whispered through the towers. The first birds of morning took flight, and somewhere deep within the kingdom, a distant roar echoed. a sound that seemed to acknowledge that something extraordinary had occurred. Kale stood frozen, unsure if he had done something miraculous or dangerous. The dragon lady's soft breathing filled the room now, steady and calm. For the first time in many moons, a sense of hope glimmered across the faces of the royal family. Yet, in the shadows beyond the windows, unseen eyes were watching. Eyes that did not like miracles, eyes that did not forgive. The kingdom had witnessed a miracle today. A human had touched life itself, and the world would never be the same again. The halls of the palace were quiet now, but the silence was tense. The dragon lady sat upright on her dais, her scales glinting like polished jewels in the morning light. She was stronger, yet still fragile, as though every heartbeat demanded careful attention. Around her, the royal family whispered in hurried tones, eyes darting to Kale, the human mechanic who had caused the impossible. Kale himself had retreated to the edge of the hall, unsure where to place himself. He had never meant to enter the palace, and he certainly had never imagined touching a dragon would spark such a reaction. And yet, as he stared at the dragon lady, he felt a strange energy thrumming beneath his skin, a warmth that spread from his hands up through his arms. "What is this?" Kale muttered under his breath, glancing at the intricate lines etched into the dragon lady's scales. There was a rhythm to it, almost like a pulse that matched his own heartbeat. He had spent his life fixing machines, repairing broken engines and gears, but this was unlike anything he had ever touched. It was alive. The dragon lady's eldest son, a towering dragon with scales of deep emerald, stepped forward. "Who are you, human? What power do you carry that my mother lives because of your touch?" His voice was low but sharp, carrying authority and suspicion in equal measure. Kale shook his head. I'm just a mechanic," he said honestly. "I fix things. I didn't mean to touch her like that. I didn't know." His words trailed off. He had no explanation that would make sense to them. Even to him, what had happened seemed impossible. The dragon lady's gaze softened. "You are no ordinary human," she said, her voice calm but powerful. "There is something within you, something old and rare. It has been hidden even from yourself." She paused, looking at him with curiosity and wonder. A dragon's life should not be restored by a human's touch, and yet it was. Why? Kale swallowed hard. He did not understand. His life had been simple, ordinary. He had never known dragons closely, never touched one, never imagined that his hands carried such power. And yet, the proof lay in front of him. The dragon lady was alive, her scales glowing softly, her breathing steady. The royal family exchanged glances. Some were skeptical, some fearful, others filled with awe. "We cannot leave this to chance," one advisor said, his voice trembling. "This human may be a miracle or a curse. We must know what he is capable of before it is too late." Kale felt the weight of their stares. He wanted to step back, to leave, to hide among the tools and machines he understood. But some part of him, a spark he had never noticed before, urged him forward. It told him that he had been chosen for a reason, that his accidental touch was only the beginning of something greater. Just then, a shadow moved outside the tall windows. Kale and the dragon lady both noticed it. A group of dragons, strangers from a distant land, had appeared at the palace gates. Their scales were darker than any Kale had seen, their eyes sharp and unyielding. They did not come to visit. They came to judge. The eldest prince roared, wings flaring as he prepared to defend the palace. "Enemies," he growled. "They know she lives. They will not forgive this." The dragon lady's gaze met Kale's. "Your touch has changed more than my life," she said quietly. "It has drawn attention. Danger is coming. We must prepare." Kale's heart pounded. He had never fought, never faced dragons in battle. But he could feel the energy within him now, alive and strong, responding to the danger. Somehow, he knew that his role was not over. The moment he had thought was accidental was instead the start of something much bigger. The palace doors rattled as the dark dragons circled the outer walls. The royal family scrambled to their positions, fear and determination etched into every scale. Kale moved closer to the dragon lady, unsure of what to do but unwilling to leave her side. "What do I do?" he whispered. "Learn," she said, her eyes bright and commanding. "Your hands can heal. Your presence can protect. You must understand the power you hold, before it consumes you, or before they destroy us all." The wind outside screamed as the dark dragons drew nearer. Kale clenched his fists, feeling the pulse of energy rise through him. The palace, the dragon lady, the entire kingdom depended on him, though he barely understood how or why. And as the first of the enemy dragons roared and descended toward the palace gates, Kale took a deep breath. He could not run. He could not hide. The miracle he had caused had chosen him, and now he had to rise to meet what came next. The kingdom of Eldrith held its breath. A human had entered their world. A human had touched life itself, and a storm of dragons and danger was closing in. What would happen next was unknown, but one thing was certain. Nothing would ever be the same again. The sky above Eldrith darkened as clouds twisted unnaturally, though the sun still fought to shine through. From the distance, a rumble grew, soft at first, then stronger, echoing across the mountain peaks and palace towers. Kale's heart raced. The energy he had felt within himself earlier thrummed now with urgency, as if warning him of danger yet to come. Outside the palace gates, the dark dragons had arrived in full force. Their scales shimmered like onyx under the sunlight, wings broad and powerful. Their eyes glowed with malice, sharp and unrelenting. These were no ordinary dragons. They were warriors from a distant land, a rival faction who had long coveted Eldrith's treasures and power. And now they had learned that the dragon lady still lived. The eldest prince roared a warning, his voice carrying across the palace walls. "Enemies approach. Prepare for battle." Dragons of the royal guard spread their wings, taking to the sky with precision, fire glowing faintly from their throats. Kale watched them, fear prickling along his spine. He had never fought in a dragon war, never imagined himself in the middle of a kingdom under siege. Yet somehow he knew he had to act. The dragon lady rose slowly from her dais, her scales shining with renewed strength. She looked at Kale with calm authority. "Your touch has awakened more than life," she said. "It has drawn them here. You must learn to control what lies within you, or we will all fall." Kale swallowed hard, feeling the strange energy pulse through his body stronger than ever. He reached out instinctively, trying to understand it, to make sense of the warmth and light that seemed to respond to his emotions. But it was chaotic, wild, he had no control yet. And as the first of the dark dragons swooped closer to the gates, he felt a surge of fear that made his hands tremble. From the palace walls, fire erupted as the royal dragons attacked. Smoke and heat filled the air, and the sound of beating wings shook the halls. Kale's breath caught in his throat. The enemy dragons were fast, powerful, and merciless. One massive black dragon lunged straight at the gates, breaking through the initial defenses. Kale stepped forward without thinking. The energy inside him flared, spreading from his hands like sunlight cutting through a storm. The dragon nearest him froze mid-air, its roar catching in its throat. Sparks of light danced along its scales, forcing it back. The royal dragons glanced at him, confusion and awe mixing in their eyes. The dragon lady's voice rang out over the chaos. "Do not be afraid, Kale. Trust your power." She moved with grace, her presence steadying the palace defenders. "You are part of this battle now, whether you realize it or not." Kale clenched his fists, feeling the strange power align with his fear and determination. He took a deep breath and focused, unsure what he would do next. When the next enemy dragon lunged at the gates, Kale raised his hands instinctively. A brilliant light shot from his palms, striking the dragon and forcing it to twist away in shock. The courtyard erupted in murmurs and gasps. The royal dragons had never seen anything like it. A human wielding such force and energy that could stop dragons in mid-flight was unheard of. Some dragons circled Kale, cautious but curious, unsure whether he was a threat or an ally. The enemy dragons roared, regrouping for another attack. Kale realized this was only the beginning. Amid the chaos, Kale's fear began to shift into something else. Resolve. He was no longer just a human mechanic. His touch had healed the dragon lady. His hands could strike at enemies. And somehow, he felt connected to the kingdom itself, as if the very life of Eldrith pulsed through him. The battle raged above and below the palace. Dark dragons collided with royal defenders, fire and energy lighting the sky. Kale moved instinctively, focusing on the flow of energy around him. Sparks flew, dragons stumbled, and yet, the palace walls held strong. The royal family watched in disbelief, some whispering that perhaps humans were more than they had ever imagined. And then, as the enemy dragons regrouped for a final assault, the dragon lady's voice echoed across the battlefield. Kale, trust yourself. You are the signal of life. Do not falter now. Kale raised his hands once more, the energy within him flaring brighter than ever. For a moment, time seemed to freeze. The dragons, both friend and foe, paused mid-air. The air vibrated with a pulse, a force that no one could ignore. The dark dragons hesitated, unsure how to face this sudden, unexplainable power. In that instant, Kale understood something profound. His touch had healed, yes, but it had also awakened a force that could defend the kingdom in ways no dragon or weapon could. Yet, he knew this was only the beginning. The enemies would not retreat for long, and his power was still raw, untested. The sky roared with wings and fire as the first wave of dark dragons circled for retreat, cautious but unwilling to give up. The royal dragons hovered, ready for another strike. Kale stood among them, trembling but resolute, the energy thrumming through his body like a living heartbeat. The kingdom had survived the first assault, but the message was clear. Eldrith's peace had been shattered, and a human, simple, ordinary Kale was now the key to its defense. The dragon lady's eyes met his, filled with pride and caution. "This is your path now," she said. "You cannot hide from what you are. And if you fail, all of Eldrith will fall." Kale nodded, feeling the weight of responsibility settle on his shoulders. The battle had ended for now, but the war, and his own awakening, was just beginning. The air above Eldrith burned with tension as dragons clashed in the sky. Flames streaked across clouds, wings beat against wind, and the roar of creatures filled the valley like thunder. The enemy dragons had regrouped, their dark scales flashing as they dived toward the palace again, determined to destroy anything that had survived Kale's first defense. Kale stood near the dragon lady, his palms still glowing faintly from the energy that pulsed within him. He had practiced in his mind, feeling how the power responded to his will, but in the chaos of battle, control was fragile. Sweat dripped down his brow, and his heart hammered with both fear and determination. This was not the time for mistakes. The dragon lady spread her wings fully, rising above the palace courtyard. Her scales gleamed, reflecting the morning sun, and her voice carried like a command through the chaos. "Focus, Kale. You are stronger than you know. Let the energy flow through you, not against it." Kale clenched his fists, took a deep breath, and stepped forward. He reached out toward a massive black dragon that swooped down toward the palace gates. Energy crackled from his hands like lightning, wrapping around the enemy's wings. The dragon shrieked and twisted violently, losing its trajectory and crashing into the rocky cliffs beyond the walls. The royal dragons circled Kale, cautious but protective, sensing that his power could be their advantage. They adapted their attacks, coordinating with the human in ways they had never imagined. Together, Kale and the dragons formed a new kind of force, one that combined instinct, firepower, and energy unlike any the enemy had ever faced. Below, the palace walls shook from the enemy's repeated assaults. Dragons crashed against gates, claws shredded stone, and fire melted metal. Kale's energy flared again, forming a shimmering shield that pushed the attackers back. Sparks flew, and the ground vibrated beneath him. The royal family watched in awe, their previous fear slowly turning into hope. This human, a simple mechanic, was changing the course of the battle. The dragon lady swooped down, her claws striking with precision. "Kale, push forward. Don't let them regroup," she shouted. Her roar carried the weight of centuries of wisdom and strength, and Kale felt his confidence grow. The energy inside him responded to her voice, stronger, sharper, focused. A squadron of dark dragons dived in a coordinated attack, aiming for the courtyard where the Dragon Lady and Kale stood. Time seemed to slow for Kale. He raised both hands, and a burst of light shot outward, hitting the dragons mid-air. They faltered, smoke curling from their scales, and one after another, they were forced to retreat. Kale felt exhaustion gnaw at him, but he could not stop. Each dragon that fell from the sky was a reminder that the kingdom depended on him. For the first time, he realized that his accidental touch had not just healed the Dragon Lady. It had awakened something greater, a force that could protect and even fight alongside dragons. The enemy dragons, seeing their numbers waver, pulled back to the distant mountains. Their roars carried a warning, a promise that this battle was not over. Yet for the moment, the palace of Eldrith was safe. Kale's chest heaved as he lowered his hands, the energy dimming but still humming faintly. He was trembling from exhaustion, but also from exhilaration. The Dragon Lady landed gracefully beside him. Her eyes softened, her scales shimmering with pride. "You did well, Kale. You have faced fear and turned it into strength. But remember, your power is still untamed. If you do not learn to control it fully, even greater danger will find us." Kale nodded, understanding the weight of her words. He had saved the palace, yes, but this was only the beginning. Somewhere beyond the mountains, more enemies would be waiting, stronger and smarter, testing the limits of both dragon and human. The royal family gathered around, their eyes filled with questions, awe, and a hint of respect. The eldest prince spoke quietly, almost reverently. "A human has protected us. The legends, perhaps they were true after all." Kale looked at the Dragon Lady, who gave a faint smile. "The legends speak of humans who could heal dragons and wield energy unknown to our kind," she said. "Perhaps your arrival was always meant to happen." As the sun climbed higher, the palace of Eldrith seemed brighter, stronger, alive with the bond between dragons and the human who had touched life itself. Yet shadows still lingered on the horizon. The dark dragons were retreating, yes, but they would return. And next time, Kale knew he would need to be ready. Not just to heal, but to fight, to lead, and to face what he could barely yet understand about himself. Above, the sky was calm again, but the air was thick with anticipation. Eldrith had survived, but a storm was coming. One that would test the courage of every dragon and the strength of one human who had changed the course of history with a single touch. Kale clenched his fists, feeling the pulse of energy in his veins. He was no longer just a mechanic. He was a part of Eldrith's future, a force no enemy could ignore, and the miracle he had caused was only the first step of a long, dangerous path. The palace of Eldrith had quieted after the first wave of attacks, but the tension hung thick like fog. The royal family gathered in the grand hall, their eyes heavy with questions and curiosity. Kale stood near the Dragon Lady, still feeling the hum of energy pulsing through his hands, as if it had become a part of him. He had survived the battle, but the mystery of his power pressed on his mind like a weight he could not lift. The Dragon Lady's gaze was sharp, almost piercing, as she studied him. "Kale," she said softly, "your touch is not ordinary. It carries an ancient force, one that even dragons have forgotten. I feel it within you, a power older than the oldest of our kind." Kale swallowed, uncertain. "I don't understand. I'm just a mechanic. I fix things. How can there be anything ancient inside me?" The Dragon Lady's wings spread slightly, a gesture of patience and authority. "You were born of humans, yes, but your lineage, it is touched by something more. A force that can heal, protect, and even fight alongside dragons. The moment your hands met mine, it awakened. That energy responds to life itself, to will and courage. That is why you saved me. That is why you struck down the enemies today." The royal family whispered among themselves, some skeptical, some wide-eyed with awe. The eldest prince's claws tapped nervously against the stone floor. "If this power is in him, he said. Why has it never shown before? Why now? The dragon lady's eyes softened. Because it needed purpose, focus, and need. Kale was never ordinary, but he was untested. The kingdom itself drew him here, at the exact moment we required his touch. Fate works in ways humans rarely see or understand. Kale shook his head. Fate? I didn't choose any of this. I was just trying to fix a broken gear. His words hung in the air, almost absurd against the weight of what had happened. But deep inside, he felt the truth of her words. Something greater had guided him, something he had yet to understand. Before anyone could speak further, a shadow passed across the hall. The dragon lady's eyes narrowed. Enemies are near, she said quietly. They retreat for now, but they are planning. There is a force behind them, a dark mind that seeks to take Eldrith and bend it to its will. And Kale, your awakening has caught their attention. Kale felt a chill run down his spine. He had thought the first battle was enough, had hoped that defeating the attackers would bring peace. But now he realized the enemy's reach went beyond mere dragons. They had intelligence, strategy, and a desire to destroy what he had only just begun to understand. The dragon lady stepped closer, her presence calm but commanding. There is more you must know, she said. Long ago, humans and dragons shared a bond. Legends tell of humans who could heal and protect dragons, who could channel life in ways no other creature could. That bond was broken, lost to fear and mistrust. Kale, you carry that bloodline. The power you awakened is not just energy. It is the ancient connection returning. Kale's hands trembled. He had never imagined such a thing, never believed in legends. And yet, the evidence was undeniable. The energy inside him had saved the dragon lady, defended the palace, and now seemed to hum with purpose, waiting to grow stronger. The eldest prince spoke again, his voice low but serious. If this is true, then Kale's power is more than a gift. It is a weapon, and it is also a responsibility. If the enemy knows of it, they will not rest until it is destroyed or controlled. Kale nodded, understanding the gravity of his situation for the first time. The first battle had been a test, but the war was far from over. He was no longer a simple mechanic. He was a force that could change the course of history, a link between humans and dragons, a power the kingdom could not survive without. The dragon lady smiled faintly, placing a clawed hand lightly on Kale's shoulder. You have faced fear and doubt, she said. Now you must face understanding. Learn to control this power fully, and you will protect not just me, but the entire kingdom. Fail, and Eldrith will fall into darkness. Kale's chest tightened with determination. Fear remained, yes, but now it was tempered with purpose. He had been chosen by chance, but his choices from this moment onward would define the fate of Eldrith and every dragon within it. Outside the palace walls, distant roars echoed across the mountains. The enemy had retreated, but their warning was clear. They would return, stronger, smarter, and more relentless. Eldrith's survival depended on a human who had touched life itself, and who now carried an ancient power that no one fully understood, not even himself. Kale clenched his fists, feeling the hum of energy pulse stronger than ever. He was ready, or as ready as he could be, for what was coming. Secrets had been revealed, but answers alone would not save the kingdom. Action, courage, and mastery of his gift would. And somewhere deep in the shadows, the enemy watched, plotting, knowing that the human who had touched the dragon lady was far more dangerous than anyone could imagine. The sky above Eldrith was streaked with fire and smoke, a battlefield painted with shadows and light. The dark dragons had returned, larger in number, sharper in intent. They circled the palace, their eyes glinting with malice, their wings cutting the air like blades. This time there would be no retreat. The final confrontation had arrived. Kale stood at the edge of the courtyard, his palms glowing with the energy that had saved the dragon lady and defended the palace once before. The hum of power inside him had grown stronger over the days, responding to his thoughts, his courage, even his fear. He clenched his fists and took a deep breath. Today he would no longer be just a mechanic. Today he would be the shield of Eldrith. The dragon lady hovered above him, majestic and commanding. Her wings spread wide, casting a shadow that seemed to embrace the entire kingdom. "Kale," she said, her voice both gentle and firm, "this is more than a battle. This is a choice. Your strength, your courage, your heart. They will decide the fate of every dragon in Eldrith. Trust yourself, and trust the bond you share with us." Kale nodded. There was no time for doubt. The dark dragons surged forward, their roar shaking the mountains. Fire streaked across the sky, meeting the defenses of Eldrith's royal dragons with explosive clashes. Kale stepped forward, feeling the energy in his hands reach a brilliance he had never felt before. He extended his arms, and a wave of light shot toward the attackers. Dragons twisted in midair, faltering as the energy wrapped around them, forcing them back. The royal dragons circled Kale, forming a protective formation. They moved as one, instinctive and precise, while Kale's energy strengthened their attacks. Every strike, every roar, every blast of light seemed connected, human and dragon, together against the darkness. The enemies roared in frustration, unable to anticipate the unusual force that now defended Eldrith. Amid the chaos, Kale spotted the leader of the dark dragons, a massive black dragon with scales like midnight steel. Its eyes were cruel, calculating. It lunged toward the dragon lady, who hovered above the palace gates. Kale felt a surge of fear, but it transformed instantly into determination. He stepped forward and focused his power, letting it flow through him, steady and controlled. A brilliant beam of energy shot from his palms, striking the black dragon mid-air. It faltered, twisted, and roared in surprise as Kale's energy encircled it like chains of light. The royal dragons seized the moment, striking in unison, claws and fire against the enemy. The black dragon let out one final roar before retreating into the distant mountains, wounded and humiliated. The remaining dark dragons scattered, their morale broken. Kale's hands hummed with residual energy, but he lowered them slowly, exhaustion and exhilaration mixing in his chest. The courtyard was silent except for the heavy breathing of dragons and humans alike. Eldrith had survived. The dragon lady landed gracefully beside Kale. Her scales glimmered in the sunlight, and her eyes shone with pride. "You have done more than heal me or defend the palace," she said softly. "You have restored hope. You have reminded us of the bond we once shared with humans. You are no longer an outsider, Kale. You are a part of Eldrith." The royal family approached, their expressions a mixture of respect, relief, and awe. The eldest prince stepped forward, claws brushing lightly against the stone floor. "We doubted humans," he admitted, his voice low but sincere. "But now we see the truth. A human has saved our kingdom. You are welcome here, Kale, not as a guest, but as an ally and protector." Kale blinked, overwhelmed. For so long, he had been a simple mechanic, unnoticed, underestimated. And now, dragons looked to him with trust, respect, and even hope. A smile tugged at his lips. Perhaps fate had chosen him not by accident, but for this very purpose. The dragon lady's wings folded around him, a gesture of protection and acknowledgement. "The future of Eldrith is brighter because of you," she said. "But remember, this is only the beginning. Threats will come again, but together, we can face them. Together, humans and dragons can stand stronger than ever." Kale nodded, feeling a warmth spread through him. Not just from the energy, but from the acceptance, the bond, the sense of purpose he had found. He had touched life and changed it forever. Outside the palace, the sun broke fully through the clouds. The kingdom was safe for now, but the mountains still echoed with distant roars, reminders that the world beyond Eldrith was dangerous and waiting. Kale looked toward the horizon, his fists clenched in quiet determination. He would be ready. The dragon lady spread her wings and took flight, Kale following with energy guiding his steps. Dragons soared above him, their roars mingling with his own sense of power and responsibility. Eldrith had found a new champion, one who bridged the worlds of humans and dragons. And as the kingdom of Eldrith basked in the golden light of victory, a bond stronger than any blade, fire, or magic had been forged. A bond that would carry them through the storms to come, unbroken and unyielding. The mechanic was no longer just a human. He was a hero, a protector, and the bridge between two worlds, a force that dragons and humans alike would never forget.